Welcome to another riveting, exciting, and educational in the Chute. Calen, you're going to try to stump me? What do you got?
Exquisite and educational is what I prefer.
There you
Uh,
go.
this week, branding week prep. We actually are filming the end of February, but this will be coming out May 25th, and we will be in real time about to be getting ready for branding calves. We just got done booking some tickets and prepping for kind of me coming to the ranch for the final time this year. The question is, what's all the branding week prep consist of? We've talked about it before on the shorts, but we've got 15 minutes now to kind of talk about it. Other than getting me traveled there all the way from good old Kentucky back to Montana, what are some other things that you gotta account for, do, buy, acquire, set aside, erect, maybe deconstruct real quick? What are all the things that go into prepping for
Yeah.
this big event?
Well, the very first thing is keep calves alive during calving season and
Yeah,
up
that's an
until
important
that
one.
date. That always helps. So you got something to put a brand onto. Um, that first week it's actually kind of busy. I mean, you're always watching the sky because you're planning ahead. You're watching the forecast. Are we going to actually be able to brand that day?
Yeah,
And
we
was
stressed about it last year a little bit.
it was close. It was close last year. It was kind of rainy, overcast the day before, and it gave us about a, I don't know, 6 hour, 8 hour break. Those calves
Yeah.
dried off. We were able to brand, and those last probably dozen that we were doing, it was starting to get a little mist and a
Mm-hmm.
sprinkle. So we didn't have to shut it down. We got everybody branded, and then it was time to eat. And I think we stood around in the actual rain because
We did.
we love the rain.
It felt
We
good. It was
wanted,
nice and
yeah,
cool and
yeah.
easy to just
I
enjoy.
believe we
So
all stood around in a circle. We maybe drank a beer apiece, and I
smoke
think
cigars.
I think our good friend Greg was he was supplying some cigars, so
Mm-hmm.
it was all good. It was a good time. So keeping that weather in mind is important in everything we do, but particularly that day. Like right now, um, when you think about that, calving time is you're always it's a big long stretch and you're just adjusting to the weather and trying to keep things alive. But that day, it's a showstopper. You can't.
Right.
It's something you can control whether or not you're going to do it or not. You can't control whether a calf is going to come or not. So,
Right.
and you get people together, friends of ours, family members, and it's a big deal for us. It really is. And there's some camaraderie there, getting some work done that's necessary because it would take us forever to do it and not do it well over the course of with your mom and I, it'd be days,
Right.
literally to get that done, and we would be just destroyed.
Well,
And
and the reason
everybody's the
behind
same way.
that, if people ask too, the reasons behind that is that you're not only gathering the cows from a nearby pasture and sorting the calves and everything that morning, because you don't do it the day before. That would cause too much stress and
Right.
weight loss for the calves, first off. But um, then you've got to take the calves and you got to provide vaccinations. You got to double check on occasion, just make sure that the bans for the castration, the newer version of castration, are still working, because sometimes one might slip or it broke off and you got to make sure it's put on there
Yeah.
right.
I've never
Uh,
had one break, not that
I've
long, but
and I know they're pretty rare, but I know it does happen to some
yeah,
people, so it's always good
but
to
you still
check
check.
those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look
The
for
actual
infections.
branding, the actual branding process, maybe reapplication of tags if you need it, and then of course we're also documenting all of this while we do it, so we know which calves have gotten their vaccinations for later on when it comes to being sold in the fall time. But there's a lot of different things that you need different people kind of helping make sure it all works.
Right. Well, yeah, because it's a process like an assembly line. You got
Yep.
people, we've once you got everything sorted, then you got a pen full of calves or a couple pens full of calves, and you keep feeding into those into the smaller crowd tub, and you got a couple of guys pushing calves up the chute, getting them ready, and then they come into the calf table, which you got to have in place. That's part of our process as well to get ready. But then they get put on the table, and then it takes a couple of us, three or four of us, really optimally to spin those calves over whichever side they're going to go, handle irons, get people vaccinating. And holding these calves while they're on the table sometimes is important depending on the size of the calf and
Yeah.
what's going on. These heifers seem take this a heck of a lot better than the biggest babies are large steer.
Yeah, every
They're
time.
worse than anything.
It could be a little tiny like heifer that was born a week ago and she's just itty bitty and you can pick her up in your arms and she won't make a sound. But then you get
Yeah,
the, the one that's closing in on 150 pounds and it's a big steer calf it's just bawling its eyes out for mommy.
right. Yeah, they're just they're babies. But anyway, you get everybody together. Well, the weather doesn't cooperate and you have to stop it. Now, I guess you just have a big get together and you stand around and look at each other if you can get them shut down. I think it was 2 years ago. We actually had ice. We had an ice storm the night before, and or rain, and then it turned to ice and froze. And I mean, there was ice everywhere. And we brought those calves in, and we had to wait till 9:30, 10 o'clock, which isn't bad. I mean, that's
Right.
we usually try to start around 9 o'clock anyway, get it done so we're done hopefully, shortly after noon and we can eat. But yeah, it was interesting because we brought them in and the whole time we're gathering and people are coming. I'm having doubts whether or not we can do it or not, but it worked out. It got very lucky. And that's kind of springtime in South Central Montana. We want that moisture in April and May, and that's typically a good time that we get it. So it's kind of bad timing on when we calve and when we're going to brand, but
Right.
overall it makes it better. So
Well, the
we
question
haven't
would
had to
be,
cancel a long, long, long time.
well, why wouldn't you just, do branding or calving at a different time of the year then? That would be probably the follow-on question for somebody who's not familiar with what we do. Why don't you just shift it a couple months to the right or a couple months to the left? Like
Well,
why do it then?
yeah, that's a good question, actually, or good consideration. We're trying to start calving about that first week to middle of March so that we don't have a lot of super cold weather and the grass is coming. Those cows are starting to hit green grass and produce a lot more milk for these calves instead of standing eating hay and trying to keep a calf alive while it's way below zero temperatures. There's a lot of guys that do. They calve in January, February, and
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it if you had a large enough buildings, but a lot of guys don't, and they lose some calves. So we try to do that, not stress the cows as much, use kind of those natural cycles. Most deer, elk, they're calving in June. Well, we're trying to mimic that, but push it ahead a little bit, so we still got some larger calves at sale time that are decent. So we could kick that up a little bit and brand, the first part of May. That would not be unusual, or even late April, and miss some of that. But you know what? Sure as hell you do that, it's going to rain on you anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's just a matter of the timing for the overall what's best for our herd.
Well, and I couple that too with it. You kind of a lot of times branding is it's coinciding with the movement of the herd to the
Right.
summer pastures too. So you might as well do two big stressful events at the same time rather than do it at two separate times and risk knocking off too much weight at different times. It's almost like if you're going to do it, do all of it at once. Don't just,
Right.
kind of tweak it all out a little over time.
Well, it's pulling that whole band-aid off instead of one
Yeah.
half of it and then waiting and pulling the rest of it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try to do that towards the end of May because we go to summer pasture with some of these pairs, not all of them, but some of them, and most of them, half of them, we go to summer pasture the 1st of June. So if we can brand late May and then watch these calves a little bit, just kind of keep an eye on them, make sure there's no complications, we don't have any issues, and then go ahead and send them out there where they're a lot harder to keep an eye on. Then that's the other consideration for that. So you got both
But
ends of
why?
that.
But why wouldn't you just send calves to summer pasture without a brand? I don't get it. You could just do it then.
Yeah. How would that work? Yeah, I mean,
Listen, folks, maybe a card. I'll see if I can throw a card up there. But cattle wrestling is still a thing, and we've discussed this before. So hopefully you can refer to that video, and that'll explain why.
People have lost entire herds. They'll lose 60, 80 head of heifers all at once. So some little kind of a small syndicate has got their truck and portable panels, and they get them all together, and they can do that in a single night.
Yep.
Gather a small herd of cattle up, enough to fill a large, a regular bull hauler and load them up and be gone. It can happen. So yeah, it's something very real. But as far as the prepping, we're always looking ahead to what are we going to need. You're coming out of calving season, so you've got a lot of the things that you've already needed. Syringes, needles, we got to get our vaccines. We do not do hormones. I haven't done that for only about 2 years after they first came out in the 70s. Didn't see really a great value for it. And then, decided, just try to get good nutrition, good genetics, and rely on that. And I think that's paid off. But so you're looking at that right down to the thing is, we got enough propane. Is the branding pot, in order? Is everything working? Did I put something away that should have been fixed, earlier and never got to it? And even your corrals, you're checking those over, your chutes, your gates, your calf table, making sure that it's mechanically right. And there is one thing that I need to do. I need to grind a little spot on one of the rib gates on the squeeze chute to be able to get that thing to move a little smoother. And just some small things like that. Are your handles for moving everything? Are they starting to break? Are they cracking? Is there an issue there? So a lot of your equipment check over is really important. I've got a table that I put out there. I've put in a couple of posts, and then I slide a table to work off of where all your vaccines and any kind of tagging, anything that we need is right there and ready, available. And you can work off of the table instead of, and we've done the same thing. We have a barrel to set things on, but it's sure nice to have a table and then, you're doing all of the planning ahead of time of setting up some of our panels in the corral. We set up some portable panels because at the same time, that's when we plan on moving, our 50 head of pairs that we're going to go to a summer pasture, and we segregate those from the rest that we're leaving closer to home. And so as those calves come out, we know which cow they're going to go to, and we move them from one side to the next, and just kind of do that sort after we've done the initial sort on the cows, but sort as they come out of the chute once they're branded.
Well, and another one too is people don't think about, but moving animals around. Sometimes there's others like horses or a couple of select cows that are still in the corrals. We got to push them around to specific spots so that they're not hindering the movement of the herd while we're working them, or they're not just causing a problem in general. Even moving them a little bit's a little bit of prep work too.
It is, and I mean that's just managing your different, your animals in different spots. We've always got bulls around, and the bulls are close during winter and spring, and when spring is in the air and those cows and heifers are getting close, and they've had calves and they're cycling again, and bulls are like, hey, notice me.
Time for me to go to work.
Yeah, time to go. So you're moving them around. We got horses, we got a stallion, we've got weanlings, and a lot of times we got colts at that time as well. So, it's a great big dance, and it's the herky jerky white guy dance, and other times it goes pretty smooth. So, it just depends on what's happening around you.
And then of course the big one too, like as we finish this up too, the big one is prepping for the food. Grocery shopping, getting the prep work for the meal of the day, drinks. Sometimes it might be an adult beverage. Sometimes it's just something like pop or water too. Water can be so good sometimes just because it's been a hot day.
Well, and you don't want to have people drinking alcohol up to that point. That's kind of the reward with the meal afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm just a firm believer in that, and I'm dang sure no teetotaler, but putting alcohol in with the branding crew that's usually never a good idea. I mean, they work sloppy out, but yeah, sloppiness of what you're doing, and so that's kind of a reward. But we get the whole afternoon and the whole evening to enjoy company doing that. So getting those small things. A lot of people will travel to come see us, and our friends are a couple hours away, and they probably haven't had that great of a breakfast. So it's always having something good to eat in the morning and some coffee, hot chocolate. Your mom really does kind of go all out on that. Does more than probably we need to do. Like most hostesses do, they'll overdo it. But then lunchtime, we've varied that up. and that's a plan in itself. But we've kind of got to the point where we've decided that every year we're going to do that gumbo. And I worked with some people that were they're from down south, and they know what gumbo is, and I was able to beg, borrow, steal their recipes over the years. And then I just, of course, being a white Yankee northern snow loving Viking, more meat's better. So
Yeah,
I throw a ton of meat in that thing, and that's
that's
the only
good.
tweak I've really done to it, is just really load the meat up in it of the different types. And so putting that together and planning that is no small feat. You gotta plan ahead on that, and then make a big old pot of that stuff, and it's a labor of love for sure. But everybody's, they all talk about that, so it's kind of nice to be able to reward them and feed them something nice. And I thank some of our southern friends that shared those with me over the years to kind of make that kind of a staple here for an event. It's
Yeah.
been a good deal.
Well, that's branding prep, all the way from animals and items for vaccination, tagging, all that, all the way to taking care of the people who are helping visit and get the job done. So with that, we'll take that conversation, and just like the cows after branding, put it out to pasture.